It's strange how the most ordinary nights can turn into the kind you remember for the rest of your life. Not because they were special, not because they were fun, but because something happened that never should have. It started with laughter, the kind of loud, careless laughter that only exists when you're young, free, and completely unaware of how quickly things can go wrong. I was 15, and that night I had gone over to my friend's house. His name was Anthony. His parents were out of town for the weekend, which at that age meant one thing: freedom. The house felt different the moment I walked in. Not creepy, not strange, just quieter than usual, like the walls themselves were listening. But we didn't care. We dumped snacks all over the living room floor, turned on the TV, and jumped straight into video games. Hours passed without us even noticing. The glow of the screen flickered across the room, casting shadows that danced along the walls. Outside, the night grew darker. Inside, we got louder. By the time we got bored of gaming, it was already late. The kind of late where everything feels slightly unreal. That's when Anthony had an idea. Let's make prank calls. It felt harmless, stupid, funny. We scrolled through random numbers, dialing one after another, bursting into laughter before we could even say anything. Most people didn't answer. Some cursed us out. Some just hung up. And then there was one call. At first, it felt no different. The phone rang. Once, twice, then, click. A voice answered. Not hello. Not even a greeting. Just, yeah. It was deep, rough, calm in a way that didn't feel normal. Something about it made my chest tighten, but Anthony was already laughing behind me, so I forced myself to continue. I tried to speak, stumbled over my words, made some stupid joke I barely remember. But then, the man on the other end interrupted, and everything changed. What's your name, kid? I froze. Anthony stopped laughing. The room suddenly felt smaller. I don't know why I answered. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fear. My name is Bob. There was a pause, a long one. Then the man spoke again. And this time, his voice was different. Sharper. Certain. Really. Another pause. Then, you sure it's not Anthony? Everything inside me dropped. I slowly turned my head toward my friend. His face had gone pale. The kind of pale you don't fake. The kind that comes from real fear. I hung up immediately. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. We stared at each other for a few seconds. Neither of us speaking. Trying to process something that didn't make sense. How did he know your name? I asked. Anthony shook his head. I don't know, but I could tell. He was lying. Not to me. To himself. We tried to rationalize it. Caller ID. A lucky guess. Some weird coincidence. We even got on the computer, searching for answers that would make us feel better. But nothing explained it. Nothing made it feel normal. And eventually, we did what people always do when they don't understand something. We ignored it. We went back to watching TV, pretending everything was fine, pretending that voice didn't exist. And for a while, it worked, until we heard it. A sound, faint, but unmistakable. The front door. Not knocking, not banging, just the slow, deliberate sound of the handle turning. We both looked at each other, the TV still flickering, the room suddenly too quiet. Anthony muted the sound, and that's when we heard it clearly. Metal against metal, the lock stopping the handle halfway. Someone was trying to get in. My heart started pounding so hard, felt like it was shaking my entire body. I moved toward the window, slowly, carefully, like somehow being quiet would make me invisible. I lifted the blinds just enough to see outside, and that's when I saw him. A tall figure, standing right in front of the door, completely still, as if he already knew we were watching. And then, his head turned, directly toward me. I dropped the blinds instantly, my hands shaking, my breath caught in my throat. "He's out there." My voice barely came out. Anthony didn't respond, because deep down, he already knew. Then we heard something worse. The sound of the backyard gate opening. I felt my stomach twist, because suddenly, I remembered something. The back door. We never locked it. I forgot the back door. The words came out like a confession. Anthony's eyes widened. "Go lock it." I didn't want to move. Every instinct in my body told me to stay still, to hide, to pretend none of this was happening. But I ran anyway, down the hallway, toward the back door. And then, I stopped, because someone was already there. A silhouette, standing just outside. Not moving, not knocking, just watching. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. And then, the handle turned. Slowly, the door creaked open, and he stepped inside. That was the moment everything stopped feeling real. The moment childhood ended. I backed away silently, every step careful, every breath controlled. Then I turned and ran. Upstairs, Anthony followed right behind me. Neither of us speaking, neither of us needing to. We locked ourselves in his room, then hid under the bed. The darkness wrapped around us like a trap, the kind where time doesn't move the same way anymore. Then, we heard it. Footsteps. Downstairs. Slow. Heavy. Unhurried. One door opened. Then another. Closer. Closer. Until finally, the footsteps reached the stairs. Each step creaked louder than the last. He was coming up. I could hear Anthony breathing beside me. Fast. Too loud. I covered his mouth with my hand, because the footsteps had stopped, right outside the door. Silence. Then, the door opened, and the room filled with something far worse than fear. Presence. He was inside. There's a moment, right before something terrible happens, where the world goes completely still. Not quiet, not peaceful, just still. That's exactly what it felt like. Lying under that bed, the air in the room had changed. It felt heavier, like it was harder to breathe, harder to think. Like something invisible had filled the space between us and him. Because he was there, inside the room, standing somewhere above us. I couldn't see him, not clearly, only faint shadows shifting through the thin fabric hanging from the bed frame. But I didn't need to see him. I could feel him. Every small sound became unbearable. Anthony's breathing, my heartbeat, the faint creak of the wooden floor beneath his weight. Then, he took a step, slow, deliberate, toward the closet. The door creaked open. a long, dragging sound that echoed in the silence. Inside, we heard the soft shuffle of clothes, hangers sliding, fabric brushing against fabric. He was searching, not randomly, not desperately, carefully, like he knew exactly what he was looking for. Or worse, who? Anthony's body trembled next to mine. I pressed my hand tighter over his mouth, not to silence him, but to remind him, if we made a sound, it was over. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time had stopped making sense. Then, the closet door closed, and the footsteps started again. This time, toward us, each step felt louder than the last. Closer, heavier, until they stopped, right beside the bed. My entire body locked up, every muscle frozen, every thought gone. I could hear nothing now, except one thing. Breathing. Not mine, not Anthony's. His. Slow, controlled, like he wasn't tired, like he wasn't rushed, like he had all the time in the world. I stared at the floor beneath us, unable to blink, praying, begging for this to not be real. Then something happened that I still can't fully explain. The breathing stopped, completely, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he had left. Maybe he got bored. Maybe he thought no one was here. Maybe Anthony moved, just slightly, and that tiny movement changed everything, because in the next second, the fabric of the bed was ripped upward. A hand shot in and grabbed him. Anthony screamed, a sound so raw, so full of terror, it didn't even sound human. He was dragged out from under the bed, his fingers clawing at the floor. Desperate, panicked. No, no. I froze for just 1 second, and then instinct took over. I crawled out, my eyes adjusting just enough to see what was happening. The man, he was taller than I imagined. Broad shoulders, face hidden in shadow, but his grip was tight, unnatural. Anthony was struggling, kicking, trying to break free. I looked around wildly, searching for anything at all. And then I saw it, a screwdriver on the nightstand. I didn't think, didn't hesitate. I grabbed it and ran forward before fear could stop me. I drove it straight into his back. The man screamed, a sharp, violent sound that echoed through the room. His grip loosened, just enough. Anthony pulled free, runned. We didn't look back, didn't think, didn't stop. We ran out of the room, down the stairs, through the house, the front door. Too obvious, too exposed. So we ran to the backyard and into the darkness beyond. The woods, branches scratched against our skin, leaves crunched beneath our feet. Every step felt too loud, too slow, but we didn't stop. We couldn't, because behind us, we heard it, the back door slamming open. He was coming. We dove behind a thick bush, both of us collapsing to the ground, trying to make ourselves as small as possible. My chest burned, my lungs screamed, but I forced myself to stay quiet. Then, footsteps. Outside. He stepped into the yard. I could see him now. Barely. A dark shape against the darker night. He stood still, looking, listening. Then, slowly, his head turned toward the woods, toward us. I felt it, that same feeling from before, like he could see us, even in the darkness. I lowered my head, pressed my body into the ground. "Don't move," I whispered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, he started walking toward us, fast. "He's coming," Anthony whispered, panic rising. "Run." We got up and sprinted, deeper into the woods, branches snapping, leaves exploding under our feet, the sound giving us away with every step. But we didn't care. Survival was louder than fear. Then, Anthony tripped. He hit the ground hard. I dropped beside him instantly, pulling him down, holding him still. "Stay down," I whispered. The footsteps behind us got closer, faster. Then, they slowed, stopped, just a few feet away. I could hear him, breathing again, waiting, listening. I pressed my face into the dirt, trying to disappear, trying to become nothing. Seconds passed, or maybe minutes. Then suddenly, the footsteps moved again, but this time, in the opposite direction. He ran, away from us. We didn't move, didn't speak, until the sound was completely gone. Only then did we breathe again. But something felt wrong, because deep down, we both knew people like that don't just give up. And that meant one thing: he wasn't done. There's a dangerous mistake people make in moments like that. They think surviving the first encounter means it's over, that once you escape, you're safe. But that's not how fear works. And it's definitely not how people like him work. We stayed hidden in the woods longer than we probably needed to. Neither of us speaking, neither of us moving, just listening. The night had gone completely silent. No footsteps, no movement, no sign of him. But the silence didn't feel comforting. It felt wrong. Eventually, Anthony shifted beside me. "I think he's gone." His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't answer right away, because something in my gut told me this wasn't over. Still, we couldn't stay out there forever. The house, as terrifying as it felt now, was still our only chance. There was a phone, lights, a way to call for help. So slowly, carefully, we made our way back. Every step toward the house felt heavier than the last, like we were walking back into something we didn't fully understand. The backyard came into view. Dark, still, exactly how we left it. The back door stood slightly open. That alone was enough to make my chest tighten. Anthony looked at me. I could see the hesitation in his eyes. Maybe we shouldn't go back in. He wasn't wrong. But what choice did we have? "No," I said quietly. "We have to call the police." We approached the door slowly, each step cautious, controlled. I reached out and pushed it open. The hinges creaked. Loud, too loud. We both froze, listening, waiting. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just darkness. We stepped inside. The house felt different now. Not just quiet. Not just empty. Violated. Like something had entered that didn't belong, and left part of itself behind. We shut the door behind us. Locked it this time. Every lock, every bolt. Anthony rushed to the phone, hands shaking as he dialed. I stayed near the windows, watching, scanning the darkness outside. The police operator picked up. Anthony tried to explain, his voice cracking, stumbling over the details. I wasn't listening, because something outside caught my attention. At first, I thought it was nothing, just shadows shifting in the distance. But then, I saw him, standing near the edge of the woods, completely still, watching the house, watching us. My entire body went cold. "Anthony," I whispered. He turned toward me, still holding the phone. "What?" I pointed, and when he saw it, his face drained of all color. Because there he was, the same figure, the same stillness, not hiding, not running, just watching, like he wasn't afraid anymore, like he didn't need to be. Then slowly, he took a step back and disappeared into the darkness. Gone, just like that. The police arrived not long after, flashing lights cutting through the night. Voices, questions, footsteps moving through the house. They searched everything. The yard, the woods, the surrounding area. But they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, no trace of the man. It was like he had never been there. Except, we knew the truth. We had seen him. He had been inside. He had touched us. And somehow, he knew Anthony's name. That part was the worst, because even the police couldn't explain it. They told us it was probably a coincidence, a lucky guess. Maybe we had mentioned his name during the call. But I knew we hadn't. And Anthony knew it too. That night changed something in both of us. Sleep didn't come easy after that. Not for a long time. Every small noise, every shadow, every creak in the floor felt like it could be him. Watching, waiting. Years passed. Life moved on. We grew up, got older, tried to forget. And for a while, it almost worked. But here's the thing about fear. Real fear. It doesn't disappear. It hides, waiting for the right moment to come back. 5 years later, I was at my own place, alone. It was late, quiet, normal, until I heard it. A sound, soft, faint, coming from the window. I froze, because in that moment, I wasn't in my house anymore. I was back there, under that bed, listening, waiting, and then I saw it, a shadow, just outside the glass, standing, completely still. My heart dropped, because deep down, I already knew. Some things don't let go, and some people don't forget. Was it really him, or had something far worse been following them all along? Not every sleepover begins with laughter. Some begin with frustration, anger, the kind that builds slowly until you just need to get away. That's how the second story starts. It wasn't about kids. Not this time. It was about a man who thought he was escaping one problem, only to walk straight into something much worse. His name doesn't matter. What matters is what he experienced. That night, he left his house after a heated argument with his wife. Not unusual. Couples fight. People say things they do mean. But this time, it was different. The shouting didn't stop. The tension didn't break. So he grabbed his keys and left. No plan, no destination, just distance. Eventually, he called an old friend. Paul. Paul didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just said, "Come over." And sometimes, those two words are all it takes to change everything. Paul's house was big. Too big, honestly. The kind of house that echoes when you walk through it. The kind where empty rooms feel not so empty. At first, everything felt normal. They talked, had a few drinks, laughed a little, tried to forget. Paul even offered for him to stay as long as he needed. But he refused. Just one night, he said. Funny how people say that. Because sometimes, one night is all it takes. Paul showed him to the guest room, then mentioned something odd. There are 3 guest rooms, he said casually. But I only ever use one. It didn't seem important at the time. Just a random detail. But looking back, that was the first clue. The rooms were lined up next to each other. 3 doors, side by side. And for some reason, 2 of them were always locked. At the time, it made sense. Privacy, storage, personal belongings, normal explanations. But normal explanations don't last long in stories like this. He went to bed, exhausted, drained. Sleep came quickly. At first. Then, something woke him up. A sound, faint, but persistent. Tap, tap, tap. He opened his eyes. The room was dark, silent, except for that sound. It was coming from the wall. The wall connected to the next room. At first, he ignored it, assumed it was nothing. Pipes, old wood. But then, it changed. The tapping became slower, more deliberate, almost intentional. That's when he sat up, listening closely, trying to understand what he was hearing. And then, he heard something else. A voice, faint, muffled, coming from the other side of the wall. That's when the uneasiness started to creep in. He got out of bed, walked to the door, opened it. The hallway was dark, quiet. He walked to Paul's room, knocked. Paul answered, half asleep, confused. "There's a noise," he said. "In the next room." Paul frowned. "That's not possible." He explained that those rooms were always locked, that no one ever went in there. But something in his friend's voice made Paul pause. So he grabbed a key, and together, they walked back into the hallway. The air felt colder now, heavier, like something had shifted. Paul unlocked the first door. It creaked open slowly. Inside, everything looked normal. At first, the bed was slightly disturbed, like someone had been sitting on it. The window was open. A cold breeze drifted through the room. The curtains moved slightly. Paul stepped forward, confused. This isn't right. They checked the closet, drawers, under the bed. Nothing, but something felt off. Then Paul noticed something else. His drawers, they were empty, completely empty. The things he had stored there were gone. That's when the confusion turned into something else. Fear. Without a word, Paul rushed out of the room. straight to the third door, the last guest room. His hands shook as he unlocked it. The door opened, and in that exact moment, something moved. A shadow, vast, a figure, jumping out of the window, gone before they could react. For a second, neither of them moved. Then instinct kicked in. They ran, down the hallway, through the house, out the back door, trying to catch whoever it was. But it was already too late. The night swallowed him. Gone, just like that. They stood there, breathing heavily, trying to process what just happened. Then slowly, they went back inside. And that's when things got worse. Because now, they started noticing details they had missed before. The bed sheets, stained, dark, blood, not a lot, but enough. The closet, messy, and on the floor, a knife, one that Paul recognized instantly, because it had been missing for days. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. The missing food, the strange sounds, the locked rooms. Someone had been living there, inside the house, for days, maybe longer, watching, waiting, eating their food, sleeping in their beds, and worst of all, moving through the house while they were inside, unnoticed, unheard, until that night. They called the police, filed reports, answered questions, but just like the first story, no one was ever caught. No names, no faces, no answers, just one terrifying realization. Sometimes, you don't need to invite danger inside, because it's already there. But the third story isn't about someone breaking in. It's about something that was never supposed to exist at all. Some fears can be explained. A stranger breaking in, a hidden intruder living in your home. As terrifying as those are, they're still human. They follow rules. They leave traces. They exist in a world we understand. But the third story doesn't fit into any of that, because this one was never about a person. It started the way most childhood memories do. Simple, innocent. Two kids, a sleepover, a basement. They were around 10 years old, still at that age where staying up late felt like an adventure, where breaking small rules, like skipping brushing your teeth, felt rebellious. The basement was their playground, a large open space, couches, a TV, video games, and at the far end, a staircase leading up into darkness. That staircase would later become something neither of them could forget. But that night, it meant nothing. They played games for hours, laughed, yelled, argued over scores. Eventually, exhaustion took over. They turned off the lights, left the TV on, and crashed on the couches. Sleep came quickly, at least for one of them, because sometime in the middle of the night, something changed. He woke up. No reason, no sound, no nightmare, just awake. The room was dimly lit by the TV, a faint glow flickering across the walls. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, he noticed something in the corner of the basement, near the stairs. Something standing there, tall, too tall. It stretched upward, almost touching the ceiling. At first, his brain tried to make sense of it. A coat rack, a shadow, a trick of the light. But the longer he stared, the less it made sense, because it wasn't still. It felt present, like it was aware of him, watching, waiting. His body froze. Every instinct told him to move, to run, to scream, but he couldn't. So he did the only thing he could think of. He shut his eyes, tightly, pretending it wasn't there, pretending if he couldn't see it, it couldn't see him. Then, the TV turned off. Click. The room went completely dark. And that's when the fear truly began. Because now, he couldn't see anything. But somehow, that made it worse. Because deep down, he knew it was still there. He lay completely still, not moving, not breathing. Time passed, slow, endless, until eventually, exhaustion pulled him back into sleep. Or maybe something else did. The next thing he remembers is a scream. Loud, sharp, terrified, coming from upstairs. He shot up instantly, heart racing. His friend woke up too. They looked at each other. No words needed. And then, they ran. Up the stairs. Into the house. Toward the sound. They reached the bedroom. The door was open. Inside, his friend's mother sat on the bed, crying, shaking. His father was searching the room frantically, opening drawers, checking corners, looking under the bed. What happened, they asked. But she couldn't answer. Not at first. It took time, minutes, before she finally spoke. And when she did, her words didn't make sense. I saw someone. The room went quiet, standing by the door. The father stopped moving. What do you mean? She shook her head, tears falling. It was tall. Her voice trembled. Too tall. The kids froze. Because in that moment, they both thought the same thing. The basement. The corner. The thing near the stairs. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't a dream. It had been there. And somehow, it had moved. From the basement to the bedroom. Without a sound. Without a trace. The father searched the entire house. Every room. Every window. Every door. Nothing. No signs of entry. No footprints. No broken locks. Nothing that proved anyone had been there. But something had. Because they had seen it. Both of them. Years passed. The kids grew up. Moved on. Tried to forget. But some memories don't fade. They stay with you. Quiet. Dormant. Waiting. One day, years later, they talked about it again. The friend admitted something. His mother never liked talking about that night. But once, just once, she described it in more detail. And what she said matched perfectly. The height, the shape, the presence. It was the same thing. The same thing that stood in the basement, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, following. Because here's the part no one can explain. That house was sold years ago. New family, new life, but strange stories. Started again. Whispers, shadows, unexplained sightings. always near the stairs, always in the dark, always watching. #Clapperboard final thought. Sleepovers are supposed to be safe, fun, a place where memories are made. But sometimes, those memories turn into something else. Something you can't explain. Something you can't forget. Because whether it's a stranger, a hidden intruder, or something far worse, one thing is always true. The scariest moments don't happen in haunted houses. They happen in places you trust the most. Places where you let your guard down. Places like a simple sleepover,